Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another Bite-Sized Branding live show. Excited. I don't know why it feels like a long time since the last time we did one of these shows. It was literally 2 weeks ago, but hey, we're back and we're in business. We have the amazing 𝗲𝗲𝘁𝗲𝗿 with us. He is, but we've actually worked directly with him, which has been fantastic. We've done a little bit of work with him, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But first, welcome, Grant, to the show. As always, my co-host. How are you, man?
I'm very, very well. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, welcome, Peter, to the show. And for our listeners, my name is Grant Tom, and I'm the head fire starter of the advertising and marketing industry. And what I do is I help businesses to ignite their ideas and make them launch and create value for their customers at the end of the day. And what we love about the show is we bring a guest on board with a view to unbundle these knowledge in the sense of what we should, as business owners, try and learn and think about to implement in our businesses. So what we do is we ask our guests a question. It's only 5 minutes or less, and we have a clock and we try and ask a question. But when we bring a guest on, we bring it on for 2 extra minutes, purely for the fact that
we talk too much.
Bernard and I ask a lot of questions and we budge in a lot, so we need to get the content really out. So until then, but let's get the show rolling. I'm really very excited about the subject. It's something that's close to my heart. It's something that should be close to everyone's heart that's in business. And I think what we need to do is understand the world of selling. And I think, Peter, welcome to the show.
Yeah, and
Thanks,
remove
Grant.
the
Thanks, Bernard.
we need to remove that that stigma around selling. I think people, when you hear the word selling, people don't realize how often they're doing it in every single thing they do in their lives. And if you were to just start labeling everything they did as selling, I think there'll be a lot less. It would be a lot less of a naughty word, you know.
Yes. And one of the things that I love to challenge people on, right? The reason that there's such a stigma around selling is because people have done sales in a really gross way.
Yeah.
Right. Like they've been pushy. They've not listened to clients. They've not done their research. They've not been empathetic. Right. The reality is you can be a good salesperson. You can make great money and you can feel good about it and treat people well. That is totally a possibility. And that's a foundational mindset that I really like to instill in any reps that I work with, founders that I work with who've got, that sour taste in their mouth from working with icky salespeople, right? Because it can be done. I've had, great levels of success, and I don't feel icky about the approach to selling. But it comes through learning and practice and mindset shifts, and just have an openness to that. And this call will be really valuable for you today, guys.
Fantastic.
And everybody, that's Peter. Without any introduction. But give everyone, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. We actually have used Peter as a part of our onboarding process for new salespeople because of his not so much analytical, but I think humanizing way of looking at the individuals and seeing them for their talents. We brought Peter in, and it's been a phenomenal experience so far, and we're going to do a lot more of it. So we thought, you know what? If we're going to use the guy, we might as well abuse the guy. No, we might as well put him in the show. And that's why we brought him on. But Peter, man, I'll chuck it to you. Thank you for joining us. Give everyone a little bit of background. Obviously they've probably got a bit of a feel for you already, but give them a little bit of background on what you do under the Founder Sales.
Founder Sales Solution is the company name. So look, where Founder Sales, there we go. I've got myself tongue tied. Where Founder Sales Solution, where Founder Sales Solution comes from is my unique background, right? Often you get people with really good sales experience, but they don't have the entrepreneurial experience. We get really good entrepreneurs who've happened to sell, but they've never had trained proper sales experience and become sales managers, right? I've been lucky enough in my career to go through both in a very deep and intimate way, and being the first salespeople and done sales leadership, as well as been the entrepreneur, raised capital and lived that life too, right? Which is why I specifically focus on working with earlier stage companies that are selling B2B and are going through that process of how do I get to that first successful salesperson and the second and the third? Like, how do I go from me as the founder who's just kind of figured out how to sell my thing because I'm good at what I do and I kind of understand the market? How do I actually scale that beyond myself to not be the only salesperson, right? And that journey of hiring those salespeople, like what to put in place, is very, very, confusing if you haven't lived it before. So that's what my business is all built around, kind of like an outsourced sales manager, but I also come in with sales coaching and sales strategy to go, I'm at $500,000 in revenue. I want to get to 1.5. What's the strategy to get there? If I'm not confident in it, I come in and give a little bit more sort of support and structure to that process to allow you to really feel confident in the way that you're going about doing it. And like you said before, I guess my personal brand is really humanizing this stuff, right? I don't want to be that pushy, over the top, in your face salesperson, because founders don't want to do that. That's not why you started a business. You started a business because you believe in something, you're good at something, you see an opportunity, you want to help people. And so that's what I'm about, supporting and enabling you to go to that next level and actually start really making the money for all of the time and effort and energy investment you put into building a company thus far.
See, and that's why we like this guy.
There we go.
Yeah.
The show's over.
Let's do it. Cut. Wrap it up.
Okay.
Awesome. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Let's jump into that first question. So the first question we have is, a salesperson will come into the business. They'll be excited, verbose, over the top, or they might not be. Their demeanor might be a little more subdued. The first question really is, how do you make a salesperson as effective as possible when they come into your business? What are the ducks to get in the row to enable them to do everything they need to do effectively? Let me where is it? Can I get it without looking? Nope. I got it.
Let's go. Right.
Perfect. Making a salesperson more effective. First and foremost, it comes with hiring the right person, right? Some people are motivated by all sorts of different things, right? And so understanding the individual's motivation for going into the role and how it fits into their career, and like, is this because this is a stepping stone to another path of their career? Like, where are they going? Like, get to understand the human on a human level, as well as the skill set, right? So you want to kind of go through a process of that. You then want to, and this is the big thing that I see so often, right? You hear someone who's exciting, full of energy, and they're extroverted, and you assume they're going to be a good salesperson, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reality is, particularly in B2B, the best salespeople are the ones who ask the best questions, not the ones who talk the most, right? I use a personality profiling tool to assess reps as I'm looking to hire them, and we did this in your business, Bernard. And it gives you an insight, are they introverted? Are they extroverted? Because you can be an introvert and be a great salesperson. It's not as common, but it's a different style to selling, right? Introverts are naturally a little bit more analytical, right? So if you supply them with data and information and structure, chances are they're going to sell more effectively, right? But if you try and stick them on stages and get them to be charismatic and woo audiences, it's like, okay, it's possible, but it's going to cost them a lot more energy, a lot more time and heartache than someone that's natural for it, right? So I guess the first thing is understand the human, what's natural for them, where they're wanting to go, what their motivation behind the role is. When you get all of that and you actually connect with them on that level, you get so much information, as to how you can set them up successfully. The next piece is you really want to understand where a salesperson's at on their growth journey and how that fits into the business, right? So I have a little bit of a rule where I don't suggest people spending more than $100,000 a year on base salary for a salesperson if they don't really get this concept, which is around problem solving versus product selling. Right. So when you go from like, hey, this is my product and these are my features and this is how much it costs, right? Every rep knows how to do that. And if they don't, they probably don't have a job, right? The good salespeople, and the reason that it's worth paying them a salary that's, greater than 100 grand a year is because they've got through this point. Now, it's not just a cognitive thing you have, one conversation with. I remember when one of my great sales mentors was coaching me through this. He told me this concept of really solving business problems and understanding the problem and almost detaching from the product that I'm trying to sell, right? If I understand the problem, then I can kind of work out, hey, is this something that I should kind of direct towards being a sale, or is it actually not a fit? Like, if it's not a fit, get out of there. Stop wasting your time. So where are they at on that journey? Because that's a really foundational pivot point when someone goes from talking about the products and the features and all of that to solving the business problem and understanding what the buyer is actually really trying to achieve and getting super customer centric and kind of getting obsessed with, what's going on in the customer's mind and those types of things. If you've got someone like that, then it's like, you got to pay them more, right? Because they just are worth more. So that's a really simplistic lens of like, where are they on their personal sales growth journey? The other thing, and again, this is a question that I learned from that same mentor that I mentioned. His name is John Dean, if anybody sort of wants to look him up. Very, very great sales leader out there. when you're in an interview, I love to ask salespeople, which of these 3 areas are you best at, and in what order? Are you a great opener? Are you great at navigating deals, or are you great at closing deals? Because the reality is, most salespeople can be great at 1, maybe 2, but salespeople aren't great, exceptional at all 3, right? So depending on where you stick them in that process, you know, I remember in one of the previous businesses I was in, we hired someone. He was a fantastic opener. The guy could cold call and pick up leads way better than I could, right? But man, oh man, he could not close a deal to save his life, right? And it's like if we had clarity around, well, we did have a level of clarity around it in that situation. But if you're strategically setting that up, it's like, really, instead of letting him do his whole deal process, you should have had him doing the outbound and then me navigating closing the deals, because they're my 2 like great strengths. And so getting strategic around what type of skills within the sales spectrum that this person naturally has, and is their kind of weapon, or their area of absolute greatness, and getting them to hone in on that, or being aware, right? Like, so for example, if someone said to me, well, they're not a great opener, I'd know that I need to either have some great marketing, right? So they're getting warm leads in place, or we've got maybe an outbound agency who's going and doing some cold calling to get in the the prospects, and then this salesperson goes and navigates and closes out the deal, or vice versa, right? So getting clear on setting the salesperson up with the right foundation, the right motivation, the right personality, and then putting them in the sales process appropriately. That's the 2 big pieces. And the third is setting up not just a sales process, but using a sales methodology, right? So when I say sales methodology, sometimes founders who haven't got the background in sales just think they mean the stages in the deal pipeline, right? You got your deal pipeline, your first call, and then your demo, and then your contract negotiation, and then, that's a sales process. Sales methodology is a repeatable, consistent way that you can almost navigate deals. It's a set of questions that allow you to explore how likely a deal is to get closed. So rather than being like, oh, they got really excited, we're going to make business out of this, let's forecast it for the month, the quarter, the year. It actually gives you a bit of a systematic way of making sure you've asked the tough questions, and you're not getting salesperson excitement hype and missing out. This piece alone, getting the right sales methodology implemented and kept accountable within a sales team, or even as a founder. Like I've showed founders this and actually seen them as much as triple their revenues within 6 months just by using a sales methodology and some implementation and accountability coaching around that. So that's
bespoke. Is that bespoke for every single business, or is it kind of like, is a set methodology that's kind of, the variation is the language more than anything?
There's a whole collection of sales methodologies out there. Personally, I typically train Taz. Cool. Cut off.
Yeah, so finish that off. I gotta know.
Have a sales methodology. What it is can be optimized, but just pick one, and at least use one.
And is that something you would like? So when you work with somebody, you would go, okay, this is probably the methodology that's going to suit your business model best. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So it's like product versus solution type selling, etc. Yeah. B2B versus B2C.
How big the deal is, how complex the sale is, depends on what you choose. And
cool. Awesome. Wow.
It's at this point that I would say to our viewers and our listeners that they should actually replay this section, because I think what you gave us there of 7 minutes was so vital that in itself, we couldn't ask or add anything. Your flow and the description as to what companies and businesses need to do with their sales process. I think they should watch this section again, because that for me was very precise and the best delivered that we've ever experienced on the show before.
Oh, yeah, I honestly just want to do. I just want to do more work with Peter right now. Like I'm just like, oh man, I've got my little synapses in my brain are just firing right now. Like, oh god, I've got to call him after this show and organize more stuff. Spend more money on Peter. That's what I've written. More money on Peter. Okay,
so it's invest more money. Invest more money.
That's it.
That's ROI. We're in sales land. We're in sales land, baby.
100%. Cool. Let's kick on to the next one. when hiring a salesperson, especially your first salesperson, when is it the right time to bring that person on board? I think a lot of people know at some point the business is kind of outgrowing their bandwidth. We've hit that point as well with ourselves. And you're like, okay, now it's time. I think it's time to go get on a salesperson. How do I know that it's definitely the right time? Let me kick this little baby off. Whoop, no. Oh yeah, I did it. Oh, I think I paused it. There it is.
Oh, you're running. Let's go.
Bad, huh?
Perfect. Look, it's a really interesting question. So something that I'll call out. I speak to a lot of founders, right? And they say, "Oh, I'll just hire a salesperson and everything will be okay. I won't have to sell as much. I don't like selling. Like, hire a salesperson, all be okay, right?"
There's so much experience.
Yeah, right. Or I get the other question. Oh, where do I find a commission-only salesperson? So I want to talk to those couple of things, right? The right time to hire a salesperson is when you've got to a point of sales hire readiness. Now, there's a free scorecard out there, and maybe we can share a link to it afterwards. It's on the Justified Talent group website. There are specialist sales recruiters in first sales hires, and they've got a 4-minute scorecard test, which is a really good structured way of getting a 1 to 100 score within 4 areas to see how sales hire ready you are. I often work with my clients to almost do that, to give them numbers around this sales black box of how sales hire ready someone is, right? The first of them is around affordability. So the affordability piece, have 3 to 4 months of salary in the bank and ready to go, right? Because the reality is you need that time to actually give the salesperson the chance to find their feet and get in their flow and work it out, right? That 3 or 4 months, it will cost you money if you want someone good. If you want to hire commission-only salespeople, be ready to have a process and hire 20 people and keep one of them, right? Because the reality is, if you're decent at B2B sales, you can go out to the market and get $100,000 a year salary, 180 on target earnings, 200, on target earnings. Obviously that ranges. You've got people coming through the growth who are a little bit cheaper than that and things, and they might work out a little bit more expensive than that as well. But the reality is there are big base salaries because salespeople can make a lot of money that are good. And if you're hiring commission-only salespeople, normally they're very early in their career, and it sucks so much time. There are certain industries and certain circumstances it can work for, but I'd really suggest not having that as your primary mindset, because there is big base salaries for people who can sell out there in the market. So that's the affordability piece. You've then got the marketability, which is how well you understand your market, right? Do you actually have the ideal customer persona? Do you actually understand, what motivates them to buy, what your unique selling point is, how you're solving problems in a way that is different, and how you compare to the market? You need to have a level of insights around that. If you just throw a sales rep in without enough insights around that, they're going to say stupid things, right?
Yeah.
And they're not going to make sales. The next thing is around systems, right? So what are your systems for bringing in lead gen? Do you actually have any leads, or are you like, oh, salesperson, go out and find every lead? Man, when you do that to a salesperson, it's really challenging to get started, right? Whereas if you've got 3 to 4, maybe 10 leads a month coming in, for them to start getting some momentum, start getting some reps on the board, close a few sales with a bit of momentum, their ability to then take that momentum and build upon that and find more opportunities and learn from that really makes a difference. Now, when I say systems, I'm not just talking about systems for finding leads, right? There's other systems and processes that are needed to be put in place around CRM, around sales meetings and those types of things as well. But we don't have time to go into all of that. And the fourth area is around enabling, right? And this is the sales management piece that so many founders forget about, right? They're like, oh, I'll just hire a salesperson, they'll figure it out, right? The reality is, if you're hiring a rep who's $100,000 a year and maybe $200,000 a year on target earnings, they're probably not going to be able to figure it all out without a sales manager, right? You don't have the ability to or capacity to afford to hire a full-time sales manager at that point, and you shouldn't either, right? It's not the right timing for it. But you do want to properly invest in treating them like a proper team member, right? So have weekly sales meetings with them, have targets and KPIs, work out, like I said in my previous question answer, Like, where are they going with their career? How can you help grow and develop them in their career? Because think about the nature of how a salesperson is wired, right?
Yeah.
Their whole job is about growth. I'm guessing they're probably going to want to have some personal / career growth in their job role, right? If you're just like, sit here and sell for me and figure it all out, and like maybe at some point we'll kind of go somewhere, right? Versus like, oh, where are you going in your career? Oh, you want to be a sales manager? Oh, okay, right. So what can we do to support you with that? Okay, well, right. It's just a totally different setup if you approach it in that way. So that's really important to have that enabling piece and figure out if you want to be a sales manager. You know, sometimes when I'm working with clients, I'll go in there because they don't want to be the sales manager, or the founder wants to be sales managed, right? Because they're like, yeah, I'm the founder, but they can then report into me, have that sales management experience, and either choose to then be a rep and a founder, or to be a rep who gets developed into a sales manager, you know, after actually having some lived experience and had that accountability and the structure and the quarter plans and the targets and the commissions. And like, how do you put all that stuff together? Like, that's a whole area. Like, how much do you pay a salesperson? How much do you expect them to make? You know, when you put in $100,000 into a salesperson, what's reasonable to make out of them? 110, because, you know, 10 grand profit kind of sounds nice. Like, or 500, like, is that reasonable? Just to kind of drop in on that specifically, it's 3 to 5 times whatever you're paying them in total, right? So if you're spending 200 grand a year, you want to be getting 600 to $1 million in revenue out of the rep, right? That's after 6 months of ramp time, right? If you're really lucky, you'll ramp them in 3 months, but 3 to 6 months. You know, after that point, you want to be getting towards that. If you've figured out your product market fit, if you're far enough down that journey, right? But if you're still figuring and iterating stuff out, you know, that sort of might change. So is hiring a salesperson the best next step? If you've got those things in place, yes. How much of those things in place really is a little bit of an intuitive thing. That's certainly something I can help out with. But I guess on a free resource side of things, go do the Justified Talent Sales Hire Readiness Scorecard test. And I also have a link on my website where I've recorded an hour webinar where I specifically talk through in more detail each of those 4 areas and what you can do to, you know, evolve your sales hire readiness and actually make revenue out of becoming more sales hire ready.
I saw you sneak that in. Sales hire ready. And I just rushed it in there to make it before the timer. I actually did have a question. You mentioned the mentor in the last one. I thought I might just share that with everyone. What was the name of that mentor?
John Ding. He runs a company called Sales Director Central. So they're very, very good at scaling up your sales team, right? So I specialize in the earlier stage of the market where you're, you know, hiring that first, second, third salesperson. If you've got a team of 5 and you're wanting to look at that sort of sales director leadership, you know, you've raised some capital, you're trying to, you know, grow from 5 million to 20 million or get to exit or something. Those guys are specialists in that. And I work quite closely with them and highly recommend what they do if you're at that phase of business.
Cool.
So, Peter, I just want to ask you.
Sorry,
Peter, I just want to ask you a question. Okay, it's just very quickly because it's not part of our sequence of questions. So, for an owner to take his top sales guy and turn him into a sales manager, good idea, bad idea?
Terrible. Normally, right? If you're in a small business and it's the right type of person, you know, because you've only got 2 or 3 salespeople and it's the right type of person and they just happen to be best performing, yes. But if you look at the typical sort of landscape of salespeople, the best salespeople are selfish. And they need to be the best of the best, right? The top 5%, they're selfish and they have to be, right? I don't classify myself in that. I'm not in the top 5% of salespeople, hand up, right? But could I out-sales manage most of those top 5% of people? Yeah, quite probably. The reason I can do that is because I'm a team player, right? And that's where the management piece comes in, right? You still need to be great at sales, but you need to be much more holistic, the team, that type of thing. Let the best rep keep being the best rep.
That's it. Done. Excellent.
Yeah. Just quickly on your website, where were those 4 bullet points? Where would you find them?
So my website is 𝗤𝗲𝘁𝗶𝘆.com. You'll see there's a little button at the top of the website that says Sales Hire Readiness Test. So yeah, you click on that and that page there has a link off to the Sales Hire Readiness Scorecard, or you can see I've been interviewed by the guy who created that scorecard test. And you can see that, yeah, you can go through all of those 4 areas. I go through it in a whole hour-long webinar to add some value to founders out there who are looking to, you know, scale up their sales approach and become sales hire ready.
Look at that. Yeah, so that's the link there if you're watching, or it's I shared it in the comments as well. So good luck. Should be pretty easy to find. It was for me. And then the last question, let's jump to that last question. So this is a great one. I think when we came up with this, everyone was like, yeah, let's talk about that. But what are the common mistakes that you find that founders and owners are making during their sales process? Now my phone has decided it doesn't is done with today's presentation. There we go. Look, sideways branding. Nope, not gonna work. Always got to do something tricky. This time, look, at least I have a stand, Grant. At least we have,
a stand. At least you got a clock. That's the main thing. We normally falling off the table. Right, you've lost 5 seconds.
So what are the mistakes we often find founders and owners making?
The common mistake that we see is that they sell like they would want to be sold to if they're a consumer, right? Because so many founders haven't got a B2B sales background. And the way you sell to a consumer is very different to the way you sell to a business. Now, the reason I say that is because the reality is if you're selling to an organization, what they care about is, do you solve the problem that they have within the budget that they have? When you're selling to a consumer, they care about making it as damn cheap as possible because, like, that money goes off their mortgage, right? So price is a lot more sensitive when it comes to consumer selling. Now, there's certainly value ways that you can work around that, brand positioning, all sorts of things. So I'm not going to dive into that. But often founders find it challenging, I noticed, to ask like what feels like tough or confronting questions when that's just the nature of how organizations are structured, right? So I'll hop on a call in a first demonstration, like if I was selling some software, for example, right? And just ask the person, like, where's the budget coming from this? Like, who's got access to that? Is that you? Do you actually have sign off for that? Or are you reporting? Do you have to go up 6 lines of reporting to get access to that? Like, what's the sign off level approval? Like, how does that work? And I asked that up front, right? Whereas if you said that to a consumer, it's like, well, my approver is my wife, and you know, like it's weird and it's pushy, and it's like they're questions that are so much more commonplace. And because founders often haven't got that B2B sales background, they're not kind of sure of these things that are very commonplace. Another thing that I noticed, right? I often suggest if you've already sort of spoken to someone and they're not getting back to you, and there's something that you do need to sort of discuss that they've sort of told you is of interest to discuss, that type of thing, I suggest people just shove a time in people's calendar, right? Now, if you just shove the time in your mate's calendar for dinner without saying hey or whatever, that'd be a bit weird, you know. And if it, like often like small business owners, you know, would be like, whoa, like that's kind of odd. But in larger corporates, the reality is that's how their calendar works. Right? Their boss shoves stuff in there, their manager, someone from another department just books time in their calendar, shoves stuff in, and they're constantly prioritizing and that type of thing. So there's a way to do it that isn't so pushy and overt. I personally like to put like a little, I'll put proposed, you know, and then I'll put in the description what I'm looking to talk about, why I'm looking to talk about it, and let me know if this time works, or let's shift it around, right? It's not, you know, so all of these little things that are just like you wouldn't think to do because they're kind of not intuitive to how you've liked being sold to in the past as a consumer. But when we're selling to businesses, we're talking about ROI, right? And we have reporting lines to deal with, and we have business cases to write to justify things, right? Emotion is always part of the sales process, but it's less in B2B sales than B2C, in my opinion. I'm sure, you know, there's all sorts of different views out there in the sales world, but yeah, just understanding that process of actually what it is like to sell business to business is a journey a founder needs to go on if they've not had background in that. And that's where on the previous question I sort of talked about sales methodology and things like that. That's a real foundation for helping with that. The sales methodology I often work with is called target account selling. That comes with 20 questions that allows you to get really super clear, you know, on where the deal's at, and ask questions like, what's the political status of this deal, right? Because that's just not something you have to think about, you know, when you're selling to a consumer. You guys see where I'm going with this? The common mistakes are those things that just are obvious when you're in this field, but just kind of counterintuitive to our own personal experience. And normally a founder's personal experience is what's helped them get into the business and help make them successful. So it's a little bit of it's a counter flip to sort of cover things off from that approach.
Would you say that business owners are a little bit too close or a little bit too passionate and therefore become defensive rather than trying to be promoting or selling?
It really depends. It really depends. I think founders being passionate about what they do is part of their secret weapon that isn't replicable, right? So often founders hire salespeople and go, why can I close 5 in 10 leads and they only close 3 in 10 or 2 in 10? And it's like, there are parts of being a founder that are not replicable, right? The things that are, and extracting those is a bit of an intuitive art. And because I've lived the process, I feel like I've got a pretty good, lens on what those things are to extract, right? And that's when you can start bringing process around your sales process, and coming across. Sorry, did that answer the question?
Definitely, yeah.
I think it did for sure.
He got so captivated by you, he forgot the question.
Just went down a rabbit hole. I've got lots of opinions on these things, right?
I think
at the end of the day, sales is vital. If you don't have sales in your business, you're not going to survive. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the right representation, it's representing you with the view to open and close, then you're also just wasting your time. So I think what you've shared today is vital. I want to understand, how do you find this key person?
Sorry, the key person, the decision maker?
No, the key salesperson. How do you go about selecting a key salesperson?
So it depends on how many salespeople you've got in the business and how much you as a founder want to be involved. If you're looking at your very first sales hire, often it's really important to have somebody who's got sales experience and has sold on behalf of a small business before. Because if you hire someone who's been used to selling at Salesforce or one of those, they've got great sales training, but you stick them with no brand, no logo, no scripts, like all that stuff. You need someone who's a bit more kind of willing to get their hands dirty, like get in there, get in the mud, figure stuff out, make mistakes, not know everything that they're going in with. You need someone who can handle that environment and is willing to go the length on it. For sure.
Can I ask, like, talking about brand, like those brand elements, obviously this is called bite-sized branding. How integral do you think having that collateral on hand is to supporting a sales team to be effective? Yeah, that's right. I add my own questions in, Grant. No timer tells me what I'm going to do. Yes, you may answer that one. I really want to know.
Sorry, I was getting distracted by the timer. Do you want to just ask that again?
No, just basically, how effective is having that brand collateral in supporting that sales process?
It can definitely be done without it, is the answer. I've built tons of revenue with next to sometimes no websites, just off the back of a LinkedIn profile, right? This is the founder journey. This is the entrepreneur in me, right? Like, you can sell stuff without having any of that.
Yeah.
Does it help? Oh yeah. Like, it really does, right? I in B2B in particular, you go through this journey where you're kind of out there, you're hustling, you use your network, your contacts, you get your first sales as you're sort of building up a company, and you get to a point where there's enough cash in the bank that you can throw some at marketing and branding and positioning and all of that stuff, right? Because if you've got a good website and you've got a good LinkedIn profile and you got some messaging that's tried and proven, and you start putting out some blog content, all of that stuff helps, right? But I think what's really important is to know exactly what the next step is, because there's so many experts out in the space who are experts in their field, but they're not experts in the entrepreneurial journey of what's the actual right next step in the sales marketing journey for you to reach your next growth milestone. And that's what I would say. Whoever you're getting advice from, really make sure they've got that holistic lens. I work with a marketing director sometimes who's got that sort of lens for marketing, who can see across like what is the next step. Whereas for me in sales, I can do the same type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I know you guys, Bernard, your business, you're looking at it from that strategic lens. rather than that reactive, like, oh, let's just try Facebook and hope that works and put all our eggs in that basket, right? Because you can burn a lot of money in one vertical if you're not got the right sequence of things occurring.
Yeah.
Such a good sales pitch for me. Done. Thanks, Peter. You're hired. You're hired. Man, that was such a good show. Grant, I'm gonna flick it to you to do a wrap up and see if you remember something that you need to say today.
Look, I just think that we should just change this name of the show to edutainment, because we would be educated and entertained completely. Because Peter, I really wish I met you 30 years ago, because what you shared today is a culmination of all my experiences, all my bad decisions. And at the end of the day, if I knew what I knew today, I would have done things so differently. So I think that businesses out there need to get hold of you, need to talk to you quickly, and need to really just plan their path forward, because there's some tough times ahead of us, and sales are vital. And I think this is where you can play a crucial role in making sure that those businesses can live through these tough times. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your sharing. We couldn't say too much because you had the floor, but
that's what I was going to say. I think this is the least we've ever spoken in any show ever.
Well, the least you've ever spoken.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Grant.
Well, hopefully there was some value there. I am about asking good questions as a good salesperson, but when you give me a 7-minute timer and that's all I've got to add some value, hopefully I've achieved that for everyone.
No, it was amazing. It was amazing. Absolutely. Thank you so much, man, for joining us. I'm going to wrap up the show with your permission, gentlemen. Yeah. Am I allowed to talk now? Thank you.
No worries. I will just chime in with one final thing, a little bit of an offer for anybody who's watching along today and you want to do the Sales Hire Readiness Scorecard. If you've come along to this, drop me a line on my website and I'll sit down with you and actually go through your scorecard results and give you some advice around the direction that you're going without any charge to that. Certainly, if there's any work beyond that, that's where I make my dollars. But I'd love to help small business owners and really make a difference. So open offer to anyone listening today.
I think
awesome. If you have a link or anything, Peter, that you want us to share alongside that, I'll make sure it gets to the team and they post it up everywhere. And thank you for that. That's a great offer. So everyone get on that. Don't waste the opportunities. It's like my teacher always said: don't be the one. If you've paid for a class, don't be the one that's sitting in the back, because you get the least amount out of the class. Right? Be the one at the front. Get us everything you can get out of it. So take advantage of it. Peter, thank you so much. Thank you for the phenomenal information. We have a lot of guests on this show, and it's so nice to always be blown away by the knowledge that somebody can bring. And this show, honestly, the way you frame things and the frameworks you have around things is just phenomenal. It just built a lot of confidence and a lot of insight. So very excited to continue working together on many more things. For anyone that's watching, please like, comment, share some of your feedback. If there are guests that you'd like to feature on the show, or you have a confronting subject matter that you would like us to unbundle, let us know. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next show in a couple weeks' time. Thank you again, Peter. Thank you, as always, Grant, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.